science friends, welcome back to Science Fairly Simple. Today we're going to discuss the real guts of your project. Your hypothesis, your variables, the materials you need, and your procedure. Now's a good time to remind you to record all of your thinking in your logbook as you go through your project. Let's start out with the hypothesis. You've already done some background research on your topic, so you probably have a guess about what will happen in your experiment. That's what a hypothesis is. It's a statement that predicts the outcome of your experiment. It's an educated guess of sorts. It may turn out to be right, or it may turn out to be wrong, but either way is okay. And we'll talk more about that later. A hypothesis is usually structured as an if-then statement. For example, temperature has an effect on whether or not something melts, like how snow melts on a warm day. So if I put an ice cube in hot water, then it will melt faster than if I put it in cold water. Now you may be wondering, what should I do if my hypothesis turns out to be incorrect? The answer is, that's okay. You'll learn something important about your topic even if your hypothesis is disproven. In fact, I once had a mentor tell me that you could often make the most important discoveries when your hypothesis turns out to be wrong. One thing you should never do, though, is change your hypothesis halfway through your project. Stick with it, even if the data seems to prove that your statement is wrong. Okay, now that you have your hypothesis, let's talk about variables for your experiment. The variables are the things that are changing in your experiment. There are three kinds that we'll talk about today: independent, dependent, and controlled conditions. An independent variable is the one thing you are changing or testing in your experiment. In our ice cube example, the thing we were changing was the water temperature. The dependent variable is the thing being measured as a result of the independent variable. In our ice cube example, the dependent variable would be the time it takes for the ice cubes to melt. There are also certain things that remain constant during an experiment. This is the third type of variable, the constant conditions. In our ice cube example, some of the constant conditions might be that you use the same amount of water for each ice cube melting trial, the same kind of container to hold each of your ice cubes in water, and conducting the experiment in the same location at the same time, so no environmental differences can affect the outcome of your experiment. The next step is to determine all of the materials you will need to perform your experiment. You should list out all the materials in your logbook, including the exact quantities, measurements, and amounts you intend to use. Many people like to list everything in the order they will use them, but it's not a requirement. Don't forget to jot down any safety equipment you may need, like safety goggles or gloves. Next, you'll write the procedure for your experiment. This is one of the most important parts of your project because it's a step-by-step guide to conducting the experiment. Everything must be clearly outlined and explained so that someone who knows nothing about your experiment could reproduce exactly what you did. Remember, all of this goes in your logbook. Being able to repeat an experiment is the foundational part of scientific research. You do this to make sure your results are consistent and not just an accident that happened one time. So part of your procedure should include performing at least 3 trials of your experiment. If we use our ice cube example, you would set up 3 cups, one with hot water, one with cold water, and one with room temperature water, and melt 1 ice cube in each cup. You would then record your results and repeat that same thing 2 more times. Remember, this doesn't have to be too complicated or take a lot of time. There's plenty of great science experiments out there for kids that can be done in an afternoon.
Find us on Facebook at Science Fairly Simple.